This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in Denver, Colorado. I am here with Recalibrate Solutions. Since 2018, they have been developing a portable stress biology monitoring for our children. I'm here with the CEO, co-founder, startup executive, engineer, a little bit of everything. Let's start off a little bit about yourself, Brian. Share with me how it is you got started with this journey.
Well, thank you for having me on, first of all, and for having this opportunity. I'm excited about this. So I moved to Denver about 4 years ago, and I was invited to participate in a venture generator that is a very unique thing to Denver called 10-10-10. It's 10 CEOs, 10 problems, 10 days, and it was at that time that I was introduced to the phrase toxic stress, which I really didn't know anything about at that time. There was a subject matter expert there to explain the problem, Sarah Wadamura, the head of the psychology department at the University of Denver. When I learned about this and I learned about the impact of what toxic stress is and why it's creating such a problem for our society, I decided that somebody needed to take that up and do something about it.
And that's how most startups begin, a vision that you have of a problem out there. Let's talk about it a little bit. First of all, it's become so common knowledge that we understand as a society that stress kills. Stress is dangerous, and yet it's almost like a cliche. We really don't understand the seriousness of it. Is that something you found after you realized that toxic stress is something that really is staggering when you look at how many people are affected by it?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have always seen stress, or maybe I should say prior to 2018, I always categorized stress as something that was psychological, something that you'd find people researching in a psych department. What I've learned is that it's very closely tied to biology. It's very closely tied to our physiology. And there is good stress. It is actually a very healthy thing in the right circumstance. And then there is tolerable stress. And then there's bad stress. And it's the bad stress that really is killing us and quite literally killing our children.
That is interesting. Regardless if it's Johns Hopkins University, Harvard University, the ACE studies, there's so much research out there of how toxic stress is affecting not only the youth out there, we're talking children, where I wouldn't even think of that in common day. Obviously, as adults, we understand. Is that something that you looked at a lot of the research out there and realized that this is more prevalent than society would even have us know?
I think that's absolutely true. I think you're spot on, Gary. Stress can actually begin in the womb because the stress hormones of the mother are really being shared with the child. And when a child comes into the world, they are trying to figure it out before they have the capability to speak or to really articulate. They're watching, they're listening. And the way that they communicate, when they express their distress, they're trying to figure out, how does this world work? And so one of the most shocking things that happened to me, I'll tell you a little story, is I saw a graph from my co-founder who collected data from a returning veteran who had seen combat and had been diagnosed with PTSD, and looked at their stress hormone levels throughout the course of a day. And then beside it was a 18-month-old who had experienced stress and trauma. And there was no way to determine, the patterns were identical. There was no way to determine which one was the 18-year-old and which one was the combat veteran.
That is very revealing.
Yeah.
Obviously the challenge is that symptoms in children can be seen on certain things, certain issues. Let's say, for instance, abuse, physical abuse, you can see marks on a child.
Sure.
Malnutrition, you can see the body, it gives you signs. This is something you can't see. This is the challenge for these professionals out in the field, in the schools. They're not able to see this. Is that continue to be the frustration out there that you're experiencing as you develop this?
Yeah, I think that, again, really great observation is stress. I call it the invisible killer. because the problem starts long before you see the manifestations. Sometimes we see kids acting out. Sometimes, as you said, if it's a case of abuse or some traumatic event, we can point to the event. But in fact, the changes and the biggest problems are actually happening inside the body. And until we start monitoring that biology, we're really not going to be able to catch this early, and we're not going to be able to make a difference when it's easiest to really make a difference.
So it's safe to say that this stress can go undetected for years in a child. And obviously, the damage can already be done. Now they're dealing with long-term effects like that of mental issues, maybe even addiction, anxiety, you name it. Is this exciting for you to see something that is a tool that will basically kind of empower some of these professionals out there to stop the guesswork?
That's absolutely right. I mean, and that's really the inspiration here is our long-term vision is to bring this into standard of care for pediatric wellness. We constantly monitor the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system. We look at the eyes and the ears, and we make sure the child is functioning. We've known that the stress system, the stress response system, is critical to healthy development, but there's not been a way to monitor it, not been a really good way to see how is a child developing. Are they on track? Is their stress system on track? And that's our vision, is to see that just a normal part of every child's life.
My research that I did had me thinking of my own children, because I think as adults, we're very aware of stress, especially in the workplace. The American Institute of Stress has said that over 120,000 deaths occur from stress, directly related. That's amazing. But yet, once again, I don't picture stress in my 5-year-old, my 7-year-old, or even, like you say, pre-birth. This is something that I think the awareness is that important for you to educate people out there, even before we talk about the product you're developing.
I do think that's correct. And I mean, one of the things as an entrepreneur, an education campaign is an extremely expensive undertaking. And one of the things that is happening is our society is becoming more and more aware of it. And the pandemic has put an extremely sharp focus on this issue, because when you start isolating children, they start losing their social system, their buffering systems, their friends, their ability to spend time and connect with other people. We're in the middle of a mental health crisis with our kids right now, and so you can find coverage of this in the New York Times, the Washington Post, NPR. Oprah Winfrey has done a 60-minute special on it. There are a number of books. So I'm excited that the time is now, because people are becoming aware of it.
So obviously the problem is very prevalent right now in our society through the media and whatnot. Yet Recalibrate has the solution. And we're talking about a solution that is immediate, it's effective, it's available for professionals out there who are in the field. Share with me a little bit. Let's talk about the process of how this is done.
Okay, so this is a 5-minute saliva-based cortisol test. Cortisol is the number one indicator of stress in the body, and so we take a saliva sample. 2 drops is enough, and we put it on a test strip. And in 5 minutes, if we wait 5 minutes, we put it into a little box that's a 4x4 cube, and you get a quantitative result for what is the state of the child's stress response right now. And over time, you can put that data together, and you can start to say things are out of bounds here, and we probably need to intervene or help the child develop some tools for resilience.
I mean, this is a product you're developing that has to be able to be out in the field. It's got to be small enough. It's got to be fast. It's got to be cost effective, because we're talking about thousands, if not millions, of professionals out there in the schools that are able to use this. Was this something that is constantly being fine-tuned on how you're going about producing? Absolutely.
I mean, we back in 2019, pre-pandemic, we imagined this device, the system, as a disposable test, together with a small box that would sit on the countertop. As I said, maybe a 4x4 cube. After 2020, we realized that telemedicine may take a much larger role in our society and in the practice of medicine.
Sure.
And so we have been rethinking. This is so easy to use. A parent can collect the sample, a healthcare worker, a teacher. Really, there's no training involved. And so if you can do that, maybe it needs to be a handheld device.
True.
About the size of a TV remote, and we could put it in the hands of parents, or we could put it in the hands of teachers or school nurses or social workers, as opposed to something that plugs into the wall and sits on a countertop somewhere.
Regardless of the final product of what it's going to be, the basis will still remain. This is taking out the guesswork. We are measuring biology, and so it is very accurate. Share with me the accuracy that you've been able to produce so far in the tests that you've done.
So we have, part of the value proposition is it can't take time, it's got to be accurate, it can't cost a lot, I need to be able to throw it away, and it can't be invasive. I can't be collecting blood from a child, right? So we have used raw saliva samples. We have collected data across the range of what's clinically relevant, the high end, the low end, and we've seen accurate results. We're running about 92% accurate in our calibration curve at this point. We don't have enough samples for me to say that that's statistically significant. We still want to refine the assay to make sure that it's working extremely well, but we're very happy with our calibration curves and the way that it looks against clinically relevant tests.
That's some powerful statistics when you're talking about something that is so simple. I mean, we're talking about a 5-minute test. What's amazing too is the fact that this tool can not only be used for early detection, so that a child's not living with this kind of stress, but I'm thinking of all the programs out there where caseworkers are out there. They've been put in place for certain situations, and they're not even sure if what they're doing is working. This is a way to also monitor for them. I mean, are we getting there?
That's a great observation, Gary. It really is. I mean, we have talked about the potential to use this device as what we call an impact assessment tool. So I've got a program that I'm running in the community, whether it's at a community center or a home visitation program, and I'm trying to implement nutrition to reduce stress, or a child's exercise program to reduce stress. But I don't know how effective it really is. I don't have any data. What I can report to my contributors is I've served X number of families. We've seen X number of children. We're still involved with this many members of our community. But what we don't have is a quantitative data. Wouldn't it be nice to say we moved 25% of the children who were on the borderline of being dysregulated back into normal? And we've been able to move 50% of the population that we've been seeing out of a dysregulated stress response into a normal stress response. And that's really the power of this kind of a tool.
So really the early stage of this process is identification, being able to monitor where they're at right now, and then monitoring changes and seeing if this is something that pretty much needs attention. Is this something you think they'll do throughout a child's early childhood development?
This test is actually is valid for children at 6 months all the way through adulthood. And so you can imagine other scenarios where it could be used. And in talking to some pediatricians, one of the complaints I frequently hear is, I want to practice medicine, but I have so many of my patients who are coming in mentally distressed, or they're clinically depressed, and that's not what they signed up for. But this would be a tool to actually say, we know where you are, and we have some tools that can help you get back to normal. And
it's interesting. I mean, obviously the vision for you is really being able to envision a day when monitoring a child's stress level is really part of the standard procedure that you see happening in schools and with these professionals. Does this continue to be rewarding for you, even though it's just on the beginning of, like you say, so many different variations that the world can use it?
Gary, when I go out raising money to finish this development, the most common question I get is, So what? What happens when you get a positive test? What happens when you find a child that is starting to dysregulate? And yes, we really want to identify all those kids. But the answer to that question is, the earlier we can detect it, the faster we can recalibrate that stress response system. Sometimes it's as simple as just helping parents to understand the power of eye-to-eye contact and communication with their children as young children. If we're talking about a teenager, we may need to actually take bigger steps. But our goal is really to get kids before they even get to school and really get them ready and really intervene with simple caretaker intervention that can make a difference for those kids.
Very exciting. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their website. First of all, on the website, learn more about the team that is basically at the threshold of something that's very exciting, especially not only for us as parents, but also for professionals out there in the field, as well as those in the school, trying to detect something that really is a silent enemy that is causing some serious issues out there long-term for our children. This is a product that is in development right now. It's a startup here in Denver, Colorado. We're very glad to educate the public out there and let you understand what will be available soon. Once again, that is Recalibrate Solutions here in Denver, Colorado. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV. And if you don't know, now you know.